It's 2001 and Ford and Firestone have a problem. Those Firestone tires on a bunch of Ford SUVs are coming apart at speed. 100 people are already dead. And a massive recall of almost 20 million tires is mounted at a cost of some $2 billion. It's the dawn of the big recall era. Toyota had its own headache a few years ago around claims of unintended acceleration that were attributed to everything from pedal design to faulty electronics to misplaced carpet mats. It did massive damage to the company's reputation. Flash forward to today, GM's recalling 2.6 million cars with bad ignition switches that can pop back to the off position, leaving the car a coasting deadweight with the airbags turned off.
I am deeply sorry. We think the situation is tragic. We're deeply sorry. We apologize for what has happened.
As GM CEO Mary Barra was being grilled on Capitol Hill, the refrain was familiar. What did GM know, and when did they know it? But more importantly, when did they let car owners know it? Now, recalls are a business that car makers don't want to be in. In the U.S. alone, it amounts to some $12 billion. Globally, it's more like $40 billion. That's 3 to 5% of automakers' worldwide profits. Now, know that recalls are not uncommon. One quick glance at NHTSA's recall update page, and you'll see they're like a weekly occurrence. And generally, recalls have been on the rise for years. You're not imagining things. Part of the reason that recalls are also on the rise is because cars are put to market sooner, designed more quickly, sourced from vendors all over the globe who are kind of off doing their own thing, and full of electronics where it's just harder to spot and find every bug for every use case. More than 3/4 of all recalls are issued by the manufacturer without the feds having to apply pressure. The big headline-grabbing recalls, however, usually do involve NHTSA's little-known Office of Defect Investigation. It goes into action when a pattern of complaints are filed by owners like you and me. Since this authority was granted in 1966, NHTSA has ordered recalls on over 390 million vehicles, 46 million tires, 66 million pieces of other car equipment, and 42 million child safety seats. A recent battle between Chrysler and NHTSA over the fuel tanks in 2.1 million Jeeps suggests recalls will get more common.
NHTSA says the gas tanks for those vehicles are susceptible to rupture in a rear-end crash, and that could result in a gasoline spill and fire.
That case solidified the concept that car makers aren't necessarily off the hook just because they made a car that was safe in the year of manufacture. They may have to bring it up to evolving safety standards years later. But for the most part, car makers are only required to do a free repair under recall on cars that are 10 years old or less. You may still get a recall notice outside that window, if they can still find you, but the cost of the repair is probably on your nickel. It still makes sense to tend to it, though, so then future liability, if you sell that car, isn't on your head. If you did repair a problem covered by a recall out of your own pocket, you may be entitled to reimbursement. The eligibility is typically when you paid for the repair a year before the car maker told the feds about the problem, all the way to 10 days after the last recall notices were mailed. You can search for your car's recall status at NHTSA's safercar.gov site, or download an iOS or Android app that'll keep you up to date on the actions regarding your car, or let you report the problems. Related to recalls are TSBs, or Technical Service Bulletins. TSBs are sent by the car maker to the dealer when they've learned that something's not quite right in a range of cars. It could be through complaints or their own engineering research. These are things that do not, however, rise to the level of safety or emissions compliance. Think about a balky transmission, a quirky climate control, or failing paint. The feds don't get involved in TSBs. They leave it between you and your dealer. And the dealer may not bring it up until and unless you bring in a car with a related complaint. That's why it's important that you be a little proactive on these. You can find the data about TSBs on your car at sites like alldata.com. Now, it may also help to focus your attention on something in your car that hasn't been working right, but you just sort of took for granted. Bring this to the attention of the dealer before your car's warranty is up, because that's typically when a free repair under a TSB ends as well. But always start with documentation that the issue is happening on your car. Don't just march in there with a TSB and say, fix it. As you can see, in terms of both safety and your bank account, it pays to double check your car's recalls and TSBs.